Something happened at a concert in Chile that barely made the news cycle. No viral moment, no celebrity drama, no beef, just a man walking onto a stage, pressing play on a song from 1971 and sending an entire stadium and anyone paying attention online into complete silence before erupting into something that felt less like a crowd and more like a memory coming back to life. And the kicker? The man who wrote that song never got to hear it performed on a stage like that, because the government had him killed before he ever got the chance. This is the story of Bad Bunny, Victor Jara, and a moment that most people scrolled past without understanding what they were actually looking at. By the way, welcome to Celebrity Hip Hop Showroom, where hip hop and celebrity drama never sleep, so hit that subscribe button so you never miss the mess. Let's get into it. February 2026, Santiago, Chile. Bad Bunny walks onto the stage for his concert. Thousands of fans are already losing it, screaming, recording, the way only concert fans cry. They came for the hits, they came for the energy, they came for the man who dominated Spotify globally, who performed at the Super Bowl in front of 100 million people, who's become something bigger than a musician at this point. They did not come for a history lesson. Except that's exactly what they got. Before a single bass drop from his own catalog, before a single note from any of his Grammy-winning tracks, Bad Bunny stood on that stage and played something else entirely. The Right to Live in Peace. Victor Jara, 1971. Now, if you don't know who Victor Jara is, that's not entirely your fault. History has a way of burying the people that power wanted buried. But stick with this, because once you know the full story, the fact that Bad Bunny chose this song in this country as the very first thing he played, it stops being a concert choice and starts feeling like something deliberate, something calculated, something almost haunting. Victor Jara was a Chilean folk singer, a poet, a theater director, a man who used music the same way other people used weapons, to fight, to resist, to speak truth loudly enough that the people in power could not pretend they didn't hear it. His songs talked about workers, about poverty, about the people who build countries with their hands and never get to own any of it. He sang for the ones that governments prefer to ignore. And in Chile in the early 1970s, when a socialist government came to power under Salvador Allende, Victor Jara was one of its most visible cultural voices. That made him a target. On September 11, 1973, not the one you're thinking of, Augusto Pinochet led a military coup, backed by outside forces, supported by people who decided that a socialist government in South America was a problem that needed to be solved, regardless of the fact that it had been democratically elected. Tanks rolled into Santiago, the presidential palace was bombed, Allende died, and then the rounding up began. Thousands of people, professors, students, union workers, artists, anyone accused of leftist sympathies were detained, taken to the Chile stadium, held, tortured. Victor Jara was among them. He was detained on September 12th. He was held in that stadium with thousands of others. Soldiers broke his hands, his guitar-playing hands, the ones he used to make art, reportedly as a form of mockery. There are accounts that even after this, even in that stadium, surrounded by horror, he continued to sing, to encourage those around him, to refuse to stop being what he was. He was shot dead on September 16th, 3 days after being detained. He was 40 years old. His body was found on the streets of Santiago, bearing marks of torture. His wife Joan recovered the body and eventually fled the country. Decades later, the former military officer responsible for his death was convicted and sentenced. But Victor Jara was still dead. And his song, The Right to Live in Peace, had been written years before any of this happened, during the Vietnam War, as a tribute to the Vietnamese people's resistance. A song about the right to simply exist without being destroyed by power. The cruelty of history is that the man who wrote a song about the right to live in peace was denied exactly that. Here's where a lot of people make the mistake of thinking this was just a nice gesture, a respectful nod to Chilean history, a PR move to connect with the local crowd. No. If you're not subscribed to this channel yet, right now, right at this moment, is exactly the time to do it, because this is the part where it goes deeper than you expected. Hit subscribe. We'll still be here. Bad Bunny has a pattern, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. At the Super Bowl, every single detail of his performance was a deliberate act of cultural and political testimony. The jersey number, the machetes, the flag that used to be illegal, the Grammy handed to a child who represented every child separated from their family at a border. Nothing was accidental. Everything meant something. So when he arrives in Chile, a country that lived through a US-backed military dictatorship that disappeared thousands of people, that broke the hands of its poets, that tried to silence an entire generation of dissenters, and the very first thing he does is play a song written by the man that dictatorship murdered? That is not a nice gesture. That is a statement. He is saying, I know where I am. I know what happened here. I have not forgotten. And neither should you. In a world where artists are increasingly expected to stay in their lane, smile for the cameras, avoid controversy, protect the brand, Bad Bunny keeps doing the exact opposite. He keeps showing up with the receipts of history in his hands. He keeps making the audience feel something uncomfortable before he makes them feel something joyful. And somehow, the combination lands harder than either thing would alone. Here's the part that makes this genuinely unsettling if you think about it long enough. Victor Jara's song was written in 1971 about Vietnam. It was a protest against war, against the destruction of ordinary people by military force, against the arrogance of power that decides some lives are acceptable losses. It was then repurposed, silently, criminally, by the very type of regime it was protesting. Jara was killed by a military government. His song about peace was drowned out by the violence of the people it was critiquing. And now, in 2026, over 50 years later, one of the most famous artists alive is standing on a stage in the same country where that murder happened and playing that song in front of tens of thousands of people. The song survived. The regime didn't. The man was silenced, but the music is louder now than it ever was when he was alive. That is the twist. Power thought it won. It killed the songwriter. It burned the records. It tortured the witnesses. It tried to erase an entire era of resistance from the cultural memory of a country. And here is Bad Bunny in 2026 making sure a stadium full of young people in Chile know Victor Jara's name, know what happened, know that the right to live in peace is not a privilege, it is, as the title of the song insists, a right, and that some people died fighting for it. You cannot kill a song. You can kill the person who wrote it, but the song keeps going. Bad Bunny didn't have to do this. He had a set list, he had production, he had a show to run and a crowd that would have gone crazy for literally anything he played. He chose to open with a 55-year-old folk song written by a murdered activist. And in doing so, he reminded everyone watching, in that stadium and online, that art has always been political, that music has always been a form of resistance, and that the people who are scared of cultural power are scared of it for a reason, because it lasts, because it travels, because it cannot be deported, imprisoned, or shot. Victor Jara's hands were broken so he couldn't play. Bad Bunny played his song anyway. That is what cultural memory looks like in action. That is what it means to use a platform not just to promote yourself, but to carry forward the names and the causes of those who came before you and were silenced for it. The Chilean government of 1973 thought it could control what people were allowed to feel, remember, and sing. It could not. And 50 years later, a Puerto Rican artist at the top of the global music industry proved it in front of the whole world without a single press release. History doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just plays an old song in a packed stadium and dares you to remember what it means. If this gave you chills, good, it's supposed to. And if you want more of this, the history, the context, the moments that the algorithm would rather skip past, then subscribe. This is exactly what we do here. We slow down, we look closer, we ask what it actually means. Leave a comment. Tell us if you knew who Victor Jara was before this. Tell us what you felt when you found out. You're welcome here, all of you. See you soon. Take care.